Hi, I'm Arif Delvi from Application Technology Group within Global Sales Engineering. Continuing our video series on Customer Data Hub demo flows, today we are going to see how we can perform the deduplication tasks. We're going to log in first using our Data Steward Manager, Mandy Steward, the weekly password. To give you a recap as to what we have performed till now, first we did data import using file import, and we imported 15 records which had some of the postal codes blank in them, and then we ran the batch cleansing process to validate the addresses for these records and accepted those validated addresses. Now we have to run the deduplication task, which basically is a two-step process. The first step is where we have to do the duplicate identification, and the second step is where we have to do the duplicate resolution. To do the duplicate identification, first we go into customer data management and then we say duplicate identification. Here let's create a batch which are from the last 24 hours, for example. So here I'm going to say batch dedup last 24 hours. So this will include all the records which we actually have imported in the last 24 hours. And we're going to perform this on organizations. And let's say we're going to do a merge request for these. And then I'm going to use this particular matching configuration. Let us look at the setups as we finish starting this process. When this process is running, I will go and look at the setups. So let's add a criteria here where we're going to say organizations which are created in the last 24 hours. So after, so sysdate -1 day should get us all the records that we need. And then we say schedule, and then we submit the process. Okay. So this process is submitted. While this process is running, let me show you a couple of tasks here. So the first thing what we'll do is go to setup and maintenance, and let us look at the matching fields itself, what we have in matching. So here let's say manage enterprise data quality. That's what we need. And we looked at the cleansing task before. Now let's look at the enterprise data quality matching tasks. So drill down on the task and you see a set of tasks. So if you see here, this is basically account deduplication, and this is seed account deduplication C1. This is basically a copy of the seeded one, which actually I have modified slightly. So if you drill down into this particular task, what you see is this is an active task, and I've the usage both for real time and for batch. And then the only change I've done here is I've changed the key cluster level to exhaustive. That's the only change. But any change you make in this task, so if I have to make a change, for example, for a contact duplicate identification task, I have to first copy that task, basically say duplicate that task, and say yes, and then it will create it with a C1 DQ, etc, etc. I have to activate the task before I can proceed further. Before I do that, I have to actually save, and then I have to activate the task, and then it'll ask you a question, because you can have just one task for a particular object active at a time. I'll say yes to this. Now this particular DQ configuration is active for me. What I can do here now is change the mappings if I need, or change the score, or change the thresholds. Once I do that, I have to do a save, and then the most important thing is I have to rebuild the keys. This will make sure that all my existing records have the correct keys in them, and then I can do preview the configurations and preview the configuration results once all the tasks are completed, and basically make sure that my matching rules are set up correctly. Let me go back here. Let me cancel out from here. So it creates a new one. So let me say done and get out of this. The other thing what I want to show you is, which we actually run through, is the survivorship rules engine. So I would say manage survivorship rules. I can go into this task and we can search for all the existing survivorship rules by giving the wildcard and say search. So right now none of the rules are active, but you could actually go and edit each one and activate those rules. So for example, here, higher scoring confidence, you can set the confidence level for each group. I can edit this and then add the confidence level. I can add fields, add rules, etc. And then I can do a save and close. Then I can activate the rule, and then I can do a submit. I'm not going to do any of these, but just to give you an idea as to what the survivorship rules look like and how you can actually change the survivorship rules. This is the survivorship rule engine. So let me cancel out from here. And let's go back to our process that we ran. So I'll go into Navigator and I will go into duplicate identification. So here the job is completed, and let me drill down onto the batch ID. So here it says resolution request submitted. So it basically says there were 16 records that were in this batch and you found number of duplicates as 6. So this is the first stage of the process. The second stage is actually creating the resolution request. So I can go back to the navigator and then I can go to duplicate resolution. So here, if you can see all the status of pending in there. This is because we need to run a job known as request dispatch job, which will bring them into the new status where we can actually go and submit this particular request to get them processed or merged. So before we do that, I want you to make sure that there is no other request dispatch job running. By default, we don't have any recurring jobs running, but the way we can clarify it as going into the schedule processes, which is right here. So we can go into schedule processes. So we are in schedule processes right now, and let's see if there is anything in the wait process. So the status is wait. So if there is anything in the wait status, that means that there is a recurring job scheduled for it. So we don't see anything right now, so we are pretty much good over here. So let me go to setup and maintenance, and then let me search on run request dispatch. So I see this job, I say go to task. It's very simple, you just go to the task and do a submit. So now let's go back to data resolution, duplicate resolution, and let's refresh this. Looks like all the requests have changed status to new. So what we'll do is we'll try and merge one of the records here. So let me go into this record, and once we come here, I'll say override. So I can go through the survivorship process. So here basically it sets this record as the master record, and it's going to get merged with this record. And if there is a record in the set which I have to remove, I can remove it, and then this comes in the duplicate set which we removed. So I can say next. So here I can select which field survives from which record. If the survivorship rule engine was there, I would have automatically had a lot of this set. Then I say next, and then basically this is where I say which address survives. If I have to remove a child entity from the record set, I can remove it, and then I can say next, and then I can submit this record. So here it says submitted. I'll refresh this. So what you can do is you have to run the request dispatch job once again. So what you can do is you can set the request dispatch job to run for an hour or so as you're doing the demo, so you don't have to run it multiple times. So what I can do here is I can go back to request dispatch job and go to the task. Rather than this running just once, what I can do is I can go to the process options. I'm sorry, not the process options, but the advanced properties here. So here I can schedule it, and I can say using a schedule, and I say okay, hourly or minute, and I say every 0 hours, and I say run this for every minute, and I can run this for say for the next hour or so. So once I'm doing the demo in the next 1 hour, it runs every minute, so I don't have to actually run the job every time I do a request. I can actually create the merge request and then create the resolution, and the job would have run. So let me go back here to duplicate resolution, and let me refresh the status here. It'll take a couple of minutes by the time it submits the request and runs the process. Now the status has changed to completed. That means the merge process has gone through. So we can verify that by looking at view duplicate resolution history. So once we go here, you can see that this particular record has been merged. So let's drill down on the record, and once we drill down on the record, we can actually look at the source system references, which will actually show you two references for the same records. So this means that this particular record has successfully been merged. There are a couple of other ways to actually do duplicate identification and resolution, but those two are manual methods. So the first one is doing from the account screen. So let's go back to our home page, and then let's go to sales accounts. So in sales accounts, what you could do is you can select two records and say merge. For example, Treble and Treble navigation. If I want to merge them together, I would go here and go to actions, and say merge selected accounts, and then it will ask you to submit the request, and then I can go ahead and submit the request. So what it does here is it submits a request for the records to be merged. So let me go back to the home page again, and then let's go to customer data management, duplicate resolution. So here you can see that the record is submitted with the status of user request, and it has a status of submitted. The other way we can actually create a duplicate request is, let's go back to duplicate identification. One way we did was we had created a duplicate resolution batch. The other way is creating a duplicate resolution request. So this is a manual request where you can actually create a resolution request by searching for two records and then saying merge. So let me see, organizations. Let's search by GE. So I got a few GE records. So few of them over here. Let's take the ones which we actually loaded through our process. So which are these two. So for example, GE Biotech, these two records, and then merge them together. So what I do is I select the first record, hold the shift key, select the second record, go to actions and say create request. And it'll ask you what kind of request you want to create. So I say merge request and I say okay. And then it gives a confirmation that it's submitted, and we can go back to our resolution, duplicate resolution, and have a look and see what's happened to the record. So I'll just say yes, and here it's come into the pending status. So this is GE Healthcare, so it's processing the record. Let me just refresh this. What I can do also is, if you remember in our first video session, we had gone to the dashboard which had most of the sections blank. Let's go and look at the dashboard where we can actually see what's happened through our processing stages. So let me say yes. So this takes a minute for it to process. So I thought let me go back to the dashboard and show you guys what's happened till now. So we did the import, we did the cleansing and the identification. So all these things show up over here. So we can actually have a look over here. The user entered, it's still pending and it's still processing. So I can actually refresh it here. So if you just want to get an overall view of what has happened throughout your CDM processes, you can come to this particular screen. Let us refresh and see what has happened here. So the record has been processed and it's in a new status. Now I have to again go and submit this actual merge request. So one major difference what is between the duplicate identification process, either be it through a batch or manually, is it is still not a single step process. You have to do it two times. You have to go back into resolution and then submit the record, and then it gets processed. But the first one, where again it's a user request where we went into the sales account screen, it's a single step process. Kind of you actually select two records from that screen and then say merge, and it goes through the merge process. You don't have to go into resolution and submit it once again. So let's see if this is processed. So now this is completed. So you can view all the duplicate resolution history from view duplicate resolution history. So you see that this record is now merged. So these are the different kinds of duplicate identification and the merge processes that you can execute within the Fusion applications. So just to give you a background, we have covered file import, data cleansing, and deduplication. In our upcoming videos, we'll still have the dash flows and real-time flows, which include real-time cleansing, matching, as well as hierarchy management. Take care and have a great day. Thank you so much.